There are a lot of nasty conflicts in the world at any given time. So this is a question for those who support the motion. What's the criteria for the United States to intervene as policeman? Would that include Kenya today? Would that include Mozambique? Would that include Darfur? Would that include Rwanda in the early 90s?
Excellent question. Who wants to field it?
I can do it quick.
Well, I don't think that you can come up with any hard and fast criteria. I think a lot of what you do has to be really based on a realistic assessment of your capabilities at the moment. And nobody suggests that, for example, that if you have some murders occurring in New York City, that therefore the New York Police Department is a complete failure. Obviously, there are going to be crimes occurring in the world. We cannot stop all of them. It's beyond our means. Everybody will admit that. But I think we have to do what we can. And I think I'm with Bill Clinton when he said that it was a mistake not to have intervened in Rwanda, not to have stopped the genocide that it was in our power to stop. I think it was correct that we did intervene in Bosnia and Kosovo and we stopped terrible bloodletting in the Balkans. Today, obviously, our forces are engaged in Afghanistan and Iraq, and we don't have the capability to intervene, as many, including me, would like in places like Darfur. And that's a sad, tragic reality, which means that hundreds of thousands of people are dying. But of course, even if we don't have the capability to lead an intervention with massive use of force, we can do other things, such as using our global leadership role to push economic sanctions or to provide enablers that might allow others to intervene. But unfortunately, for all the talk from the other side about how there's so many others out there willing to play this global policing role, what we find time and time again is in very few cases is anybody willing to step forward where the United States does not lead. And I'm in favor of American leadership while recognizing the limits of our power and the fact that we cannot possibly intervene in every case. I think we should try to do as much good as possible within the bounds of our power.
There was, if I can just cut in quickly, there's a good quote here from Mr. Blair, our former Premier in Britain, I think on the important point to make, which is that just because you can't intervene everywhere doesn't mean you don't intervene anywhere. And before the Iraq War, Mr. Blair was asked by a journalist why he was going for this particular conflict, and he said, it's a very important phrase, and I absolutely agree with it. He said, people, I get fed up when people say to me, why not the Burmese lot? Why not Mugabe? He said, I don't because I can't, but when you can, you should.
Question is for the proponents of the motion. Given the fact that Medicare and Social Security and other elements in our safety net are going to be with us for a while, would any of you advocate the institution of a military draft to provide the power that would be necessary to be the world policeman on a scale that would fit the needs of the problems that are going to arise in the foreseeable future?
I don't think a draft would solve the problem. And of course, the military doesn't want a draft, and the United States carries out its policing role without a huge mass army of the kind that great powers fielded until the last third of the 20th century. But I do agree, and I did say that that is a substantial problem and does present a threat to American foreign policy. And if it results in the curtailing of the global services that include providing a global police force, the whole world, including those who most harshly criticize American foreign policy, will be sorry.
Can I just jump in and just make one point? Because I think in your question and some of the others, I kind of sent this notion of American declinism in the air, and the fact that woe is us, we're overstretched, we can't do everything that we want to do. And I think you should be aware of just how vast our power is. The fact is that we spend more than the rest of the world, or as much as the rest of the world combined, on defense, and we're still spending only 4% of our GDP, which is several percentage points less than we were spending during the Cold War. We still have the world's largest and richest economy. We've been creating jobs at a pace that outclips any other industrialized economy over the last 20 or 30 years. Our population size is growing. We're already the third largest country by population in the world, and we're projected to increase by another 150 million over the course of the next 50 years. There are vast pools of power and resources in the United States that can be mobilized for the tasks that we have to undertake. And in fact, we have mobilized them in essentially policing the world over the last 60 years. It is a very doable mission.
One more question, and please, a brief one, and direct it to one of the panelists.
I have a question over here. Actually, unfortunately, it's a very general question, which is I'm getting more and more confused as this discussion goes on what the difference is between policing the world and actually using the military to go to war. And the two seem to be discussed along with each other. And I think they're very different issues. So I don't know if anyone wants to
Who is
take
that question directed to? Which side?
I'll take it for the motion.
You already answered the question. Why don't you answer it?
Yeah, I mean, just to get back to this point, is that, I mean, I think that I can speak for people on the side when we say that, again, that the policing issue doesn't, first of all, it does not have to be only military. I think that's fairly obvious, and even a member of the other side conceded America's role in operations like the post-tsunami operations a couple of years ago. I think that, as I say, this should be cleared up before you vote, that the issue, and I think I mentioned in my comments earlier, that the issue of, for instance, sustaining an operation, remaining in a country, and all these sort of things is not what we are talking about as policing. That policing operations are not only not welfare operations, as I mentioned earlier, but are also not imperialist operations, and not even operations which people might think of sustaining for long term.